using this particular index, although I do know that this index is used by a lot of towns and school districts and any number of other things within our area. But that's my concern with this particular index as opposed to the national index.
Okay, because now what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to figure out which CPI we're going to want. Because it's not fair. I don't know whether the national is higher or lower.
That was my question. What is the national index?
I don't have a clue.
How to compare?
I don't know off the top of my head.
Yes, Representative McCarthy?
I don't have a specific answer to that question, but I can tell you this, as far as the Military Officers Association goes, this is pretty close to, right now, what they're considering to be a COLA for next year, 3.8%. It's right on the button.
I just don't know what it is.
And that's a national figure put out by the Retired Military Officers Association.
Captain Gary went down to get it, the national one.
Okay, all right, thank you very much, so we'll do that. So, I don't know the difference or how we decide, but I think that is something that, if we don't decide now, we'll be fighting about it for the rest of the next 6 months. So we should determine eventually which one we want to do so that we can put this one to bed. But any other delegation members have any input? Okay, Commissioner.
I just wanted to
Commissioner
go to the CPI. I didn't negotiate the union contracts last time around, but it was based on CPI. And it was based on the CPI on April 1st, when the contracts become effective. I didn't like that, and I'd like to get your feelings about it. I'd rather have it based on the CPI back like in November so we can budget for it. Reason I say that is that when it was negotiated, it was between 1% and 3%, I believe. And we budgeted 2%, a little on the high side, and it came up a little above 2%, so we had to make up that difference somewhere. Because it was budgeted as of April 1. I'd rather see it budgeted as CPI as of November 1, so we can put it in our budget, we know what it's going to be, and go that direction. But I'd open it up to any suggestions.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I think that that's a role for the commissioners. They are involved in this administrative process, the budget, and I think they should select, with a rationale.
I will do it then.
And then bring that back. Say this is the budget. We based it on this kind of a CPI that we evolved from whatever it was, and I think that should be left up to the commissioners.
Yeah. Right. And it could be, and again, I think that we will have the discussion on, the region, urban versus national. And but we'll see what happens on that. If we don't do that today, hopefully before you firm it up, we will come up, because there is probably a difference, but I don't know that. So while we're waiting for that national, I know that. So you're hearing that we are inflation rate close to the CPI, as low as possible. The difference between non-discretionary and discretionary, and again level, and then the CPI comes in again. So it doesn't look like we want a huge increase. I do know that the lawyer for that will be helping with the jail and the nursing home is saying other counties are going at 1% for their
union contracts.
For their union contracts, and so again, I don't think that it is our job to tell you whether it should be 1 or 2. It's just that I want to give you the trend in our thinking, and so that it's not a blind side to you when you come back with a 17% increase other than the nursing home for what happened. Representative Epson.
And that figure that you've just quoted, Madam Chairman, it includes everything. We're not going to come down here 6 months later and say, oh, it didn't include medical, it didn't include heat. That's a figure you're giving.
Well, from what I'm taking is that the lawyer who is going to be helping with the negotiations between the jail and the nursing home, other counties are looking at 1%, and I would assume that would, and perhaps that makes what out of you or me, that what happens is that it would include everything for the salaries.
For the union contract,
For the
right, but I
union.
think what Representative Babson is saying, what about heat? If
Okay,
that goes up.
and I have to tell you that I only brought that up because we had the discussion whether we will go with the 1% for increases for the union, or whether we will go to a 1 or 2% increase, low as possible, and see what the CPI is. So that I think that there is enough in the mix to keep it as low as possible, but I don't want to make it so that our infrastructure is going to, I have been here a long time, and there's a lot of infrastructure maintenance that we didn't do, that in the end cost us a lot more than if we had done it a little bit at a time. And there is also phasing in that we can do, so that I think that that's for the subcommittee chairmen. Think about the ability, especially with the salaries, if there's any way we can phase in. So you got the drift?
Okay.
Okay. Does everybody feel that we have given them enough? I don't really want a motion because I think it's still fluid. Representative Babson.
Yes, Madam Chairman. I'd like to know when the commissioners think the new pellet burner is going to be installed, because that's supposed to be saving us money on heat. Currently, we're burning all propane.
Okay, Commissioner?
Should be going in October.
This month sometime.
Yep.
So hopefully it will work. The jail apparently is in a little bit of trouble. But so if everybody feels that we have given the commissioners adequate direction that we want to go, and we also have to figure out what with the CPI. Yes.
Thank you. If I could, following up on Representative Babson's question, my understanding is that we could enjoy as much as a 20% decrease in our fuel costs because of the pellet operation. Perhaps the commissioners could now look at that you have that savings, what it would cost for the county to get to a point that we own our own propane storage tank, so then we can negotiate propane prices going forward. I think it'd be a good time to do that.
Okay. Representative Treganza.
Is the propane, is the pellet boiler going into the old nursing home?
Yes. Yeah. There's two boilers, two furnaces going in. They're two different capabilities. So we can shut the big one down during the summertime, use the little one, more efficiency.
Okay. Yes, Representative Schmidt, and then...
Just a comment on
Albright.
heating costs. There may be a pleasant surprise there, too. As of this morning, the benchmark price of crude was down to $78, which is a tremendous decrease from what we were paying. With looking like a worldwide depression heading our way, we just may luck out there. Just my comment on fuel.
It's really what you call a
Well,
lottery shoot, right?
good news and bad news.
Whatever. So that's pretty good. So, okay, it looks like the national CPI is coming out to us. And Representative Albright.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Same.
Well,
It's the same thing, she says.
3.8.
3.8.
about the same. Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I just, at least from where I sit, want to try to make sure that the commissioners, I guess, have an understanding that, what the taxpayers are paying is going to be the amount raised by taxes. When the rubber meets the road, what's going to affect the tax rate is what we're going to have as a number for the amount to be raised by taxes. And, some of that is derived from whatever the deficit is from the enterprise fund, from the nursing home, and some of that is comprised of the amount of spending versus revenue that we have from the general fund. But, that, as I alluded to earlier, we are looking at about $1 million less in money that was available last year, okay, that may or may not be available this year. We have a nursing home that is still under budget, as far as I know, by a certain amount of money. it was bantied about to be around $2 million at one point. I'm not sure what that number is.
Oh, you mean Madam Chairman, the cost of the building?
Our actual cost
Yeah.
to build the nursing home versus how much the bond was.
We're working on that right now, and hopefully we'll have that fairly shortly.
Okay, so at one point we were banding about it'd be around $2 million.
Yes.
So I mean, perhaps that might be an avenue for some of the funds to help make up for it. But we're also looking at perhaps using some of that money, I think, for the renovation of the old nursing home, if whatever's presented to us, so there's a little money there as well. But I think it's critical that what we're looking at when we're talking about a 3 or 4% increase, or whatever we're talking about, this minimal amount of increase would be in the amount to be raised by taxes, because that's what the tax rate's based on, and not the amount of the general fund. And that's why I was trying to allude to is like, well, I believe the nursing home is an area in which its budget versus its revenue seems to be, with $2.2 million cushion, needs to be tightened. Whether they probably need to increase their revenues, because I think that's kind of their game plan over their projected revenues. But that's certainly an area that could be tightened, because if they're going to be running at a revenue neutral base, and you would think that they could make it with $1 million deficit as their budget, and that would be $1 million less than their current budget. So I would hope that we're just clear on that the 3% approximate increase that we're hoping for is in the amount to be raised by taxes.
Representative Algren, you have been throwing out a 3 to 4% increase, and where did that come from? The CPI?
Well, based on this CPI thing.
3.8 for CPI.
I mean, a minimal, I prefer it to be nothing.
Well,
Go ahead,
Yeah.
go ahead.
on the breakdown here, what's on the CPI, the actual CPI is 0.2% if you take out food and energy. Okay. So you basically have a very flat CPI, except for those two items, which is basically why no one's getting Social Security or whatever. Getting back to my earlier point, though, I don't think we want to bet our lives on it, but the price of crude has dropped tremendously, and I think energy that was so high last winter will probably decrease this winter. And I just don't see the economy turning around, and demand for oil is down. But just so everyone understands the CPI, which is right here, take energy out of the equation, and you're looking at it's absolutely flat, 0.2%, which includes your labor costs and all your other big drivers.
If I could just
Yes,
follow.
Representative Umberger.
Just to follow up on that, this particular package does a good job of explaining the items that are in the CPI. And that I think we have already said that we recognize that fuel costs are still high. And so we're not suggesting, that we slash fuel prices. But what I am suggesting is if you look at the other areas within the CPI, as Representative Schmidt said, they've been pretty flat. And I think that that's kind of how we need to look at it. And we did budget last year significant increases in fuel. And so those are already within, part of the budget that's there. So you can, well, when Kathy has a chance, I'm sure she'll run more copies.
Or at least I'll be able to go to the internet and figure out where it comes from.
Karen, would you like more copies of that
What?
right now?
No, we can get them later.
Yeah, if there are 9 pages, we may need to have you, at least I'll be able to
I'll do it
figure
on
out.
2 sides.
Yeah. Okay.
Sounds like a yes.
Okay. Eventually, I would like that before we leave, because it would be something, because we're gonna have to decide, I would assume, which one we're gonna use, the Northeast or the National. And if there's not much difference, then it doesn't